Do it again. Do it again. It's recorded this time. Yes. Hi, I'm John,
I'm Anna, and you're listening to the Nelson Family Operations Podcast.
where we talk about managing and leading our family.
So get ready for some great insights into intentional family management.
Hot damn. What are we talking about today, Annie?
Let's talk about money.
Oh my gosh. I ain't got no money.
Or we like to call it the budget or the buckets.
The buckets. Yeah. So, why don't you start?
Well, I think we've pretty much always had a budget. I think I remember having a spreadsheet back when we first got married. Whether or not we actually adhered to that budget was a different story. And for a lot of times, we were working for our money instead of our money working for us.
Yeah, that was a big mental shift that we made a few years ago now, was how to make money work for us instead of working for the money. Also getting out of the month-to-month trap. And being
Definitely.
able to forecast out, like, what does it mean to have a savings account? Like, what are you saving for? That ambiguous, like, savings plan goal. We got very specific in how we pay our money forward to put it to work, so that way our budget is very stable.
Well, I think that was a tipping point in the way we handled money, because we've always tracked our money. We always looked at where we spent. We always kind of had a budget where we knew roughly how much we needed to spend each month on separate bills or food, clothing, activities for the kids, etc. But anytime there was any sort of hiccup, any sort of unplanned financial emergency, it would set us back.
Or not even that, like birthdays, Christmas and stuff would
Oh,
set us
yeah.
back, because we were tracking how we spent our money, not forecasting and planning how we were going to spend our money.
Exactly.
So now we're what, 3 years out in our forecast, and we've got pretty much every bill and payment that we make is forecasted and divided by 12, and we save monthly for that bill. So when it comes due, there's like no shock. It's like the money's just there for that bill, and it's been there.
So I think we need to maybe backtrack a little bit and talk about just briefly how we made that switch, or how we came to that. For the longest time, pretty much 17 and a half years, I would probably say 17 years, I handled most of the money, and you were happy with the allowance, and we would joke about that I would get the paycheck and you got your allowance, your weekly or monthly allowance, and then you became really interested in the budget, which was both a relief and also a stress for me personally. Kind of felt like, wait a minute, am I not doing a good enough job? And the reality was I wasn't doing a good enough job.
Oh, I want to say that. It's just we had two different approaches, and we found middle ground.
We weren't working as a team. And then you came up with this idea of buckets, and filling our buckets. And I think having that visual as we continue and talking about what we do with our buckets and what our buckets are will help people understand what exactly it is we do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I have no original ideas, so I read a lot. And I read this book called You Need a Budget.
Oh, is this where this came from? I thought this was all you.
No, no
You've
way.
been fronting this whole time.
I'm not that smart. And you can probably look up real quick on your phone who the author is of that. But You Need a Budget. It was a really good book, quick read, and it had this concept of buckets. And I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense to me. And basically what you do is you take all of your forecasted bills and you write down the month that they're due, and then every month between now and then you put aside enough money to save up to pay that bill. And then everything has to be accounted for. So you make a plan for birthdays, like we're going to spend X amount of money for birthdays on each of the kids, so we need to have X amount saved per month to get to that total. So it's simple, I think, in concept, but it gets very complicated when you start adding like car payment and insurance and grocery bills. Yeah, that's it. You need a budget.
All right. So this is, you need a budget is by, I'm going to mess up names. I'm horrible at names. Jesse McCam. Is that McCam? Mecham?
Yeah.
Mecham?
Jesse Mecham.
Yeah, so that's what inspired the buckets then.
Yeah.
And the whole time I thought you were just a genius and just like
I literally just bought this book because I listened to it on Audible and was like, wow, that changed my whole perspective on money. And that's when I started looking at our budget and kind of going, well, hey, we do a good job of tracking, but tracking isn't getting us ahead of the game. So like I built a spreadsheet kind of.
It was, yeah.
And it was scary for Anna because it didn't have
things.
nearly as many details on it as she would have wanted. But to be fair, I had two spreadsheets. Right? I had a budget that listed income and expenses, and one of the expenses was this awesome item called funded items. And it had a lot of money in it. And Anna was like, what is this, funded items? And I said, I'm glad you asked. And I clicked on the other spreadsheet, and it came up, and it had all of those forecasted out bills. And I was like, this is the amount of money we have to save every month in order to meet all of our financial obligations through the year. And it had things like travel goals that we have. It had birthdays. It had Christmas.
Car insurance.
It has car insurance, home insurance.
Yeah, flood insurance.
Just
pull it up.
Jeez,
but there's we kind of operate it, and the way we do it, I'm sure there's an app somewhere that makes this much more elegant than what we've come up with. But our system is we use a bunch of spreadsheets on Google Docs, and we track them, and we have two trackers. We have our funded, which is projected bills that we know are coming up, or projected expenses that we want to make, and we forecast how much goes into that each month. And then when that event comes along, we pay for it out of that savings account. But we also have our day-to-day spending, which has been, for the past 6 months, it's been a 3-bucket spreadsheet, and then just recently we added a 4th. But on that spreadsheet for those buckets, we track our food. We recently separated food and sundry because those used to be combined. So sundry being everything for like the house, and
toilet paper, laundry soap,
school
gas
supplies,
for the cars,
different things like that.
Yeah.
Then we have one for the kids, and then we have
the kids
one for play.
Yeah, for the kids, it's like paying for their tuitions for things like jiu-jitsu and swim team, or paying for like odds and ends that they need that come up. It's not a lot because they manage most of the money that we spend on them.
I think that's
allowance.
a whole nother podcast is teaching kids financial responsibility. Maybe we'll add that to the list.
How do we do that? By giving them a lot of money.
Yeah.
Our responsibility for a lot of money. It's their portion of the budget. So, and then we have. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Where are you at?
It's okay. I don't remember. Where I was talking about our
4 buckets: food, sundry, kids, and play.
Yes. And so food is anything grocery store, pretty much. Occasionally, anytime we eat out, will come out of that. But typically, we try to pull eating out into our play budget because that's play. That's not food.
Personally, I'm not a fan of the play budget, and I've been slashing it since it started.
I know, it has. It has slowly gotten smaller and smaller and smaller.
Reallocated. the more
Yes.
specific to be, because my whole thing is I like it to be as specific and detailed as possible for where the money is going. So if you have these big discretionary accounts every month, it makes me uneasy because there's a potential
Mismanagement.
for us to just be like, oh, there's money there, so you could just spend it. But if you put it in the funded items and put the money aside, then it takes longer, takes more effort to get to it.
I think
So there's more
sometimes
hesitation to spend it. That's why I look at it.
And I get leery of too many line items, too many buckets, because I feel like the more complicated the system, the less likely it is we'll stick to it or use it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in this tug of war between us trying to figure out exactly what we're going to track and how we're going to track it, what we're going to forecast out and save for versus what we're going to allocate just to have like in our checking account every month.
So here's just an example of some of the stuff that we have in our funded items. Flood insurance, car insurance. We have a fee that we pay for the youth center on the base. We have an Xbox Live account. That's a fun one because we save $5 a month, so that way we could pay Xbox Live
But that
one
one
time a
always
year.
comes around in November, so it's right around Christmas time, and then we get the
We're always
Xbox.
like, crap.
Yeah, there goes Christmas money.
Yep. But now it's already
Now it's
ready
saved
to go.
for.
Amazon Prime, and I don't know about our listeners. I would assume that they're using Amazon Prime, but we save $9 a month to pay for Amazon Prime.
That's what you need to save every month in order to pay for it
For
a year.
we have homeowners association fees, tax filing fees, the fee we pay quarterly to treat the house for bugs,
Yeah.
and then our insurance, our health insurance. Then we have some other funded buckets that are a little more
They're a little more
ambiguous.
discretionary.
Yeah, they're more discretionary, but they're also like time bound. So we have a homeschool budget. So every month there's money that goes to the homeschool budget, and then that money is there when we need to buy something for the kids for school. Which I'll just leave it at, it's not cheap.
No.
Homeschooling is not a cheap thing to do. And then right now we have money going to prep for our move. We have a move coming up next year. Then we have our birthday funds, an anniversary fund, a Christmas fund, car maintenance fund. I think that's an
That's a
important
good
one to
one.
have. A crisis fund, which is like that emergency account where it's just money that's there.
For true emergencies, not just, ooh, it's an emergency sale, I need these shoes.
Yeah, that's why we renamed it Crisis,
Crisis
because
fund.
crisis means more than
But
emergency.
it's more like there's a family emergency, we need to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have these four that I actually just started this month. We have one for clothes, electronics, furniture, and date night.
Yes.
So these are new buckets that we're putting money in every month because those are things that used to come out of play.
This is the tug of war. This is Jonathan wanting to be more specific. And this is me going, but wait, where's the impulsiveness?
So we have a little bit of room for impulsiveness, but if we know that there's something we want at IKEA, we could look at the furniture bucket and be like, oh, we have enough money in the furniture bucket, we can go to IKEA. Or we could be like, we don't have enough money in the furniture bucket, we can't go to IKEA.
Those are sad days when we can't go to IKEA.
But it's the same for clothes and electronics. And then date night. Like, you got to fund date night.
Yeah.
You got to have money there.
You have to prioritize your relationship.
But every night can't be date night.
No. So save up for it.
Unless you do Pizza Boost Telly.
That's always fun. But that also requires money.
Yeah.
And where was it that we read? Did we read it? Did we hear it? Somewhere along the way, we picked up this notion, and again, it wasn't an original thought, but that the planning of a trip, the planning for something, the anticipation of it, leads to a greater sense of gratification or
Oh
enjoyment.
no, there was like stats on that too. It was like 60%.
Was it like a TED Talk?
60% of the value in going on vacation is the planning of the vacation.
I think it was a TED Talk.
Like, we recently spent 3 months planning a trip to Bali, and then we had to back out of it. But we still had fun planning the trip to Bali.
We did. I'm sad that we're not going to Bali,
Yeah.
but we had to choose to be more financially responsible.
Yeah, because there wasn't money in the travel
There
bucket.
wasn't money in the travel for it.
It's just how it works out.
But in doing this, we've been able to really focus and really be purposeful with our money. And in doing so, in the past 9 months, if you count this month, we have paid off all of our debt except for our mortgage on our house.
Yeah.
So we paid off a car and we paid off a credit card,
Yeah.
which I think it totaled like $25,000 in January. That's how much debt we had on those 2 lines of accounting. And now we're just down to a mortgage.
Mm-hmm. And really that credit card was, I mean, it wasn't straight consumer debt. That was like us recovering from...
We had some crises that popped up with...
That we weren't prepared for. That drained our savings instantly.
Yep. Because we hadn't saved up enough. And then we were... I don't know.
I think that's really what led to it was having those two... like the back-to-back nature of the crisis, right? So the first thing that happened is we had some tenants that were living in our house in Charleston that broke the lease, trashed the house, and moved out 3 or 4 months early.
Yeah.
Right? And
we're not prepared. We were prepared for a little bit, prepared for maintenance stuff, but not for 3 months of no renters, having to make a mortgage out of pocket. Plus, I think they did $8,000 to $10,000 worth of damage.
Yeah.
Which totally drained all of our savings.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were doing really well by our historical standards.
Yeah.
And then that happened, and it was like we tightened down. We switched to grip mode.
We did.
Right? Like that's what you have to do. Annie went back to work. We were trying to recover from that, and then we had a death in the family that required all of us to go
fly from Japan to Tennessee.
Yeah, and to be fair, the military paid for that flight.
They paid for the flights, but
that was it. We had to pay for a hotel and rental cars and food on the road and
all of that stuff
and all the other emergency costs that go along with the death in the family. So it was very eye-opening how vulnerable our budgeting was.
Well, and at the same time as the death that we were dealing with, we also had a flood at our house. And that was another $2,000 that we were just starting to recover. We had just got new tenants in. They had new carpet, new paint, new everything. And then our house flooded. And so then there was all of that recovery. So we had a couple of whammies that really, not only did it drain the limited savings that we had at the time, but it also showed us that we weren't prepared. I think it scared us too, because we knew that potential military retirement was coming up for you or as an option for you. And we don't want to be that vulnerable again. We have 3 kids we're still taking care of. We don't want to become a burden to our family and friends. So we need to be more responsible. And I feel like with our current system for managing our money, we're there. We're saving still.
So I think the selling point was we switched to the system in January,
mm-hmm.
right? It's when we switched, and we were like mid-crisis mode, and I had done some tinkering with this, and I pitched it to Annie, and she was like hesitant because I was in her kitchen. I can pull up Excel spreadsheets that have like 5 years worth of budgeting on there. These were my babies, and he was asking me to not only leave Excel, leave numbers, but go to Google. Because we needed Docs. Shared docs, so that way we could both be in there.
And that's a pretty cool thing. So we do it. We share them. And then we have the apps on our phone, so that way it's real time. Like if I want to leave a store, I can track what I spent immediately. And
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot more accountability to each other when we do that, when we have to account for every penny, and we don't go out for coffees independently very often anymore.
Right.
Or pick up the little treats or whatever it was.
So it's good for the diet too.
It is kind of good for the diet.
So I think the big selling point for the whole thing is we were about, I think we're about 3-4 months into it, and I pulled up the spreadsheet and I was like, hey, look at how much money we have saved already.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, holy crap. Like, have we really saved that much money? Yeah, we have.
Snowballed super quick.
And it keeps doing that, which is a blessing, and it's enabled us to really aggressively recover from that crisis we had last year.
Yes.
So we could keep talking about this for days, but we could probably break it up into some other smaller podcasts and maybe talk about like hidden treasure. It's one of my favorite things.
Oh, yeah,
Going on
buried
quest
treasure.
for hidden treasure and buried treasure in your bank account.
Yeah, that's fun.
Which is fun, but we're already pushing 30 minutes.
Goodness, this is a long one. All right.
20 minutes.
Well, we can end it there, and then we can also maybe throw up
Bonus content.
Well, yeah.
Buried treasure.
Excuse the chair. I was going to say we could throw up some spreadsheets or some examples so that way people can see what we're actually talking about, because who knows if anything that we just said made sense.
Yeah, it probably didn't. Makes sense to me. That's all that matters.
Check the website, check the Facebook group. Is there a Facebook group? For files that go along with this podcast. And if you have questions, hit us up. And look for more content, more discussions about budgets and buckets later.
We hope this podcast has been informative and entertaining. If you heard something useful, give us a like or subscribe. You know the drill.
If you'd like more information about this episode's topic, links to resources, actionable ideas, and tools for managing your family, check out our website at nelsonfamilyops.com. That's nelsonfamilyops.com.
If you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to discuss, or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks
for listening. Thanks.
No, thank you for
No,
listening.
thank you for listening.
Thanks
for
Thanks.
Really.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, seriously, thank you.
Thank you for listening.